Complete a Professor Oak's challenge. What is that?
What's going on, guys? If you like the video, leave a like as we be making more content soon.
That challenge seemed really fun. I think I'm gonna try it myself. Oh, that challenge made me start balding. What is going on, guys? My name is DuffE, and welcome back to yet another video. The Professor Oak's challenge is something I stumbled upon a few years ago when I first found John's channel. Since then, I've started 3 of my own attempts in Pokemon Blue, Silver, and Ruby, only successfully doing it in Pokemon Blue. As you are well aware, the challenge is more of a test of patience than necessarily a test of skill, so what I did was play the games during my accounting classes, when I should have been paying attention, and eventually completed the challenge. Today, however, I'm going to be telling you about my experience with Pokemon Ruby, and how this game, in my opinion, is the easiest of the bunch, prior to Generation 8. To begin the challenge, we're tasked with selecting our starter Pokemon. In previous games, there were specific Pokemon like Bulbasaur or Totodile where you wanted to select in order to speed up the process, because trust me, 4 or 6 levels may seem like nothing, but is quite a bit in the grand scheme of things. In this game though, all the starter Pokemon evolve at the same level, so just pick your favorite, which is why I went with Mudkip. Eventually we're able to get Pokeballs and really start the challenge, so time to go on a catching spree. We did it. We caught all the mons available in this first section, so now it's time for the grind. In this first section, we have a lot of Pokemon that evolve at higher levels, so not only will we be battling Whismur, we will also be collecting as many rare candies as we possibly can. But, DuffE, I hear you say, how are you going to be collecting rare candies? Well, my dear viewer, that's because of the ability Pickup. Zigzagoon gets this ability, which means you can get it very early on, and here are the stats for the Pickup ability. There's a 10% chance of activating after every battle, and upon activating also has a 10% chance of collecting a rare candy. 1 in 1,000 odds may not seem very good, but when you consider that you're going to be battling a lot of Whismur, these aren't too bad. And also, if you're wondering why I'm not playing Emerald, let's just compare the 2 loot pools so that you can understand why. Yeah, I'm not doing that. One thing I want to note is, why am I not evolving my Pokemon? I'm waiting until level 35 to evolve into Marshtomp, and then level 36 to evolve into Swampert. The main reason is, I just like looking at Mudkip. I don't know why, but this little guy brings me so much joy. And then you look at Marshtomp and you're like, I hate life. Yeah, so I mean that's literally the only reason. There's no mathematical like, the little guys just level up faster. It doesn't really matter. They're all part of the same experience yield, so who cares? Personal choices aside though, after collecting enough rare candies and slaughtering countless Whismur, we're finally able to evolve everything and brutally murder Roxanne's Nosepass, therefore completing the first, and in my opinion, most difficult section of the challenge. You might be thinking that our next gym leader is Brawly, and that there aren't that many Pokemon to deal with, but oh dear viewer, that's where you're wrong. See, in a Professor Oak's challenge, you complete as much of the dex as possible prior to each required gym. A required gym is a gym you need to beat in order to progress the game. For example, in Ruby and Sapphire, you need to beat Roxanne for Captain Briny to spawn, so that he can get you to Dewford and also Slateport. You don't beat Roxanne necessarily for the HM cut. And seeing as how Brawly only gives us access to Flash upon beating him, we won't be doing that. And instead we're going to ignore him while we take a small detour in Dewford, do a few other things. While we're here, we deliver a letter, grab an old rod, catch a handful of mons, as well as backtrack to collect the EXP share before embarking to Slateport to start our next catching spree. Thankfully, a lot of the Pokemon here evolve prior to level 30, with only a few standing out, namely Seaking, Tentacruel, and Aggron. Aggron is going to take us the longest by far, fully evolving at level 42, so we'll save him for last in hopes of building up the rare candy reserves. It was during this section though that something incredible happened while I was mindlessly killing scores of Roselia and Illumise. I came across a little guy who sparkled different colors.
Is probably Grimer and Coughing. Oh!
Is that shiny?
Yeah!
Wow!
Yo! That's a super rare shiny. Holy shit!
Aside from the shiny Surskit, who I named Licorice, nothing special really happened. We got rare candies and evolved all of our Pokemon with little to no issue. I say little to no issue because there was a small problem. Tentacool. Tentacool might be the hardest Pokemon to evolve in this section just due to his poor move pool. And so you may want to head over to the game corner and buy enough coins to get the Ice Beam TM. You should have more than enough money from selling nuggets and leftover proteins to outright buy the coins for this, so this shouldn't be a concern. Anyway, we wrap up this section, cleaning and defeating Watson, before heading out for the next section of the game, which requires a little bit of backtracking. The backtracking in question is for Nose Pass. We have to head back to Granite Cave and use Rock Smash to acquire it before we can head back up north to collect our next set of mons. This might take you a few minutes, but don't fret, it shouldn't take you too long. Anyway, with Nose Pass out of the way, let's catch the rest of the Pokemon. After collecting all these Pokemon, there's a crucial piece of the puzzle we need to obtain. In Meteor Falls, there are 2 mons that are exclusive to each game, Lunatone and Sapphire, and Solrock and Ruby. Each mon has about a 5% chance of holding their respective stone, and we need to collect one. Remember that Gloom from before? Yeah, we're going to need to get a Sunstone in order to evolve it and get a Blossom for this section. If you're playing Sapphire, you're actually going to want to grab a Moonstone as well for a future evolution. The best way to do this is either with Thief or Covet. I had a Lanoon with Covet, so I just did that and grabbed a Sunstone after about 30 minutes or so of attempting. With that out of the way, it's time to head back to Route 117 to continue beating up Innocent Roselia and Illumise. Unfortunately, these two are going to be the most consistent EXP you get prior to Norman, so once this section's done, you're also going to be coming back here again. If you're like me, you've been saving certain Pokemon for last during your grind session, and this time I'm saving Grimer and Slugma. Both evolve level 38, and there's a good chance I get enough rare candies by the time they come around, I can just spam them to get them to evolve. And, sure enough, I got each of them to about level 30, and then spammed a bunch of rare candies onto them, evolving them, and then heading back over to Flannery, which was obviously a piece of cake, because I had fully evolved Pokemon. Our next section of the game is one of the shortest of the whole run, so let's sprint over to the desert. After defeating Flannery, we went to the desert and collected Trapinch, Baltoy, Cacnea, and the Claw Fossil. Which fossil you select doesn't really matter here, I just like Anorith more than Lileep, and obviously you can choose between the two who you want. Much like before though, we're going to be saving the higher level mons for last, so Trapinch and Anorith will be taking a backseat to start the section. It's actually during this time that there's something I wanted to bring up. Although this task has been tedious to say the least, I've actually had a lot of fun with it up to this point. At the time of recording this portion of the script, I've been working on this project for about 3 weeks, primarily recording only for a few hours at a time, and also while I'm chilling in a voice call with friends. Being able to talk to them about what I'm doing is actually quite motivating and helpful in keeping me sane. That, plus the fact that I'm using speed up, because doing this any other way is not really feasible for me at this current juncture of my life. Regardless, this challenge has been a lot of fun, especially more so than in Pokemon Blue and Silver. And it probably helps that Gen 3 is my favorite generation of Pokemon, so I've got that going for me. Anyway, after just a few hours of grinding, I was able to evolve everything and end this portion of the challenge. Normally at this point you'd be heading over to Norman to challenge him, but he requires 4 gym badges, so let's go beat up Brawly really quick and then go tackle Dad. Flygon steamrolls both gyms, and Norman is brought to his knees exclaiming, "Why the fuck does this kid have a Flygon?" Before we leave, badge in hand, to start the longest section of the challenge. The time has arrived for the second most difficult section of the challenge. Not only will you be going to the Safari Zone, you'll also be breeding Pokemon, and you'll be hunting Feebas. For those of you who don't know why Feebas is a problem, let's go over why. To start, it can only spawn on 6 total tiles on Route 119, and there are a lot of water tiles on Route 119, so it's going to take you a while to get through them. It's also not a 100% spawn rate on those tiles, so you need to attempt fishing multiple times on one tile before you go to the next one. That's really the best method in order of getting Feebas, because there's no way to know which tile has one until you fish one up. And if you don't fish one up, you need to go all the way back to DuFe to change up the quirky phrase or whatever it's called. And by doing that, you re-randomize which tiles have Feebas, so you'll have to go back through and do it again anyway. That's the reason behind Feebas being a pain in the butt. But after only about an hour of fishing for myself, I used the old rod to get encounters as quickly as possible. I finally found one, caught it, and then left. Because that's all you need. Another thing I mentioned in the list of things you'll be dealing with is breeding. This isn't really that bad, except that you have to travel all the way back to Mauville with each Pokemon that needs bred. The list of Pokemon we get from breeding are Igglybuff, Azurill, and Pichu. So the list is small, but you need to go just north of Rustboro to get Jigglypuff, and all the way back to the Safari Zone to get to Pikachu. I grabbed a male and female of each Pokemon, and after only about 40 minutes, I was able to grab all the eggs needed for each one. And finally, here's the biggest pain in the butt of that list. You thought Feebas was bad, but honestly, the Safari Zone will screw you over, especially if you're not like me, playing on emulator. Luckily for you, you probably have a bunch of money here giving you multiple attempts to catch Pokemon, which is great. Only, you need another thing. See, in the Safari Zone, there are 2 areas that you cannot access without a certain bike. There's an area you can only access with the acro bike, and there's an area where you can only access it with the mock bike. And so you'll be going all the way back to Mauville to swap out bikes in order to catch everything in this area. Speaking of catching everything though, let's go over the list of Pokemon, because there's a lot. We get Meditite, Magnemite, Voltorb, Doduo, Carvanha, Wailmer, Barboach, Corphish, Castform, Staryu, Kecleon, Shuppet, Duskull, Tropius, Chimecho, Absol, Vulpix, Psyduck, Natu, Girafarig, Phanpy, Pinsir, Heracross, Rhyhorn, Snorunt, Spheal, Corsola, Lovedisc, Horsey, and finally we evolve a Nuzleaf into Shiftry with our Leaf Stone. Finally, we got through all the Pokemon you catch less evolve in this area, so let's go over a couple more important things. You have to complete some of the story of the game in order to catch all the Pokemon. Specifically, you'll have to go to the Weather Institute, Mount Pyre, Slateport City, and finally, defeat Magma/Aqua in their hideout before you can access pretty much all the Water-type Pokemon. One final thing to ask is, where's your best grinding spot? There's actually a couple of ways you can handle this. For me, I decided to go to Mount Pyre because there's Duskull on the first floor as well as Shuppet, depending on the version you're playing. Duskull and Ruby, and Shuppet and Sapphire. On average, they give about 300 plus experience, which may not seem good, but you have to consider something else. Trainer Eye. See, after beating Norman, the Pokénav actually opens a new app called Trainer Eyes, or Match Call in Emerald. So now we're going back and forth between Mauville and Safari Zone and Mount Pyre and all that stuff, you can actually go back through and battle a bunch of trainers. So not only will you be battling a bunch of trainers on your way through the routes, there's also another thing that spawns, infinitely, and that's the Camera Crew duo. Now, these two are kind of tough because they spawn in 3 set locations, but without Fly, it's kind of a pain in the ass to try and grind them out. So that's why I just recommend doing it whenever you're running back and forth from Mauville and trying to catch everything. With all the evolutions out of the way though, you might be thinking it's time to go back to Fortree City and beat up Winona. That's not happening at all. No, we're actually going to go back to Moss Deep to beat up Tate and Liza in order to use Dive, because remember, required gems first. Luckily we only have about 6 Pokemon to catch during this next section, so shouldn't be too bad all things considered. This section is incredibly easy, but also, saying that, I forgot to hit record before I caught the 3 main Pokemon you catch in this area, which are Clamperl, Chinchou, and Relicanth. I caught Chinchou exactly 1 level below its requirement to evolve, so I slapped a rare candy on that motherfucker and called it good. With Relicanth though, we actually open up the ability to catch a couple of the Reggies in the region. By going down to Route 132 and following a specific path, you eventually come across a dive spot on Route 134 that leads to the sealed chamber, which requires a Pokemon to know Dig, a TM that you can get in Fall Arbor Town, and both Relicanth and Wailord to be in your party. Just a reminder, it does depend on which game you get in terms of which Pokemon goes first and last in your party. I believe in Ruby it had us using Wailord in the front and Relicanth in the back, but I think in Emerald it's actually the opposite. Just something to think about. Doing all these things though unlock the Reggie's hiding spots, which as a kid, how the hell are you supposed to know and learn these things? There was no shot I was going to 1, know this was Braille as a child, but also 2, know what it said in Braille. I won't lie and say it wasn't creative, but it was a pretty obnoxious thing to put in. We can collect Regirock on Route 111 and Regice on Route 105, and just so you know, these guys are a pain in the ass to catch. They are Gen 3 legendaries, of course. But it's pretty okay considering you can just save before each encounter and just attempt it until you catch it, so you'll be okay. It was during these battles that all I could think about was how far I've come in this challenge. I've really spent the past month or so working on this project and putting my all into it, and we're finally nearing the end. Sitting in that bliss really helped with my patience to catch both of these Reggies. While Regice I ended up catching in just a few balls, Regirock had other plans. But again, it didn't matter. I was living in pure bliss during this time, and even writing this part of the script has me grinning ear to ear. I've never attempted a project quite like this before during my time on YouTube, but it definitely has me wanting to do more long-form projects like it. It's also in this section that we get to capture the box legendary, so make sure to complete all the story stuff in Seafloor Cavern and head over to Sutopolis to confront Groudon. This took me a couple of attempts, but I finally caught him and sent his ass straight to the box. Because we don't need no legendary in order to obliterate Wallace and his squad of fangirls. Upon his obliteration, we collect our 7th badge from Wallace and head out for another section of the game. There's exactly 1 Pokemon we catch here to train up, and that Pokemon is Bagon. It sits in the back of Meteor Falls and is only accessible via waterfall. After catching it, I went over to Lily Cove and sat outside, gaining experience by defeating the local wildlife. A second wave of joy rushed over me during this section. Part of that might help because I was watching a retrospective on the GameCube era of games, and I couldn't help but think about how one of my favorite games of all time is in that era in Metroid Prime. A game I would love to cover in extensive detail one day, but that's neither here nor there. I do also want to reiterate that this challenge being nearly over isn't an exasperated, thank God it's over. It's more of an incredulous, I can't believe it's almost over, if anything. Upon evolving back onto Shogun, then Elements, I'm able to battle Winona for the 8th and final gym badge, and finally have the ability to fly. This is the final section where we only have one Pokemon to catch, but this time we don't need to worry about evolving anything. Leave Fortree City to the east and go down the route till you eventually stumble upon Registeel's chamber. Make sure you have a Pokemon with Fly. If you have Salamence, it should already know Fly. Stand in the center of the room and use the HM, unlocking Registeel's hiding spot. Much like its siblings, make sure to save before you challenge this Pokemon, because for me, it took a few minutes eventually snagging it in an S-Ball, and then leaving to go challenge the Elite Four. When I got to the Elite Four, this is the squad I was rocking out with. Yeah, none of them are stellar, but they're gonna get us the dub, and that's really all that matters. And after battling all the Elite Four and a grueling one with the champion, we won. But now what? Challenge is over, right? No, we still have a few more mons to catch. Before we head over to Moss Deep, make sure to watch the TV in your house to activate the Latios quests, or Latios if you're playing Sapphire. If you don't watch the TV, they will never spawn, so please be sure to do that. After you watch some TV though, go to Moss Deep and get yourself a Beldum, which we will evolve into a Metagross. At this point, the only two mons left are Latios and Rayquaza, and as I see Rayquaza as a fitting end of the challenge, let's go find Latios first. There's a really fast way that you can handle this. Slap a Pokemon that is level 39 or lower onto your party, preferably still in the high 30s, and use a bunch of repels. See, Latios/Latios are level 40, so if you have a Pokemon that's just below its level and you're spamming repels, you will still be able to encounter it. And you'll repel all the other wild Pokemon around you. Here's the thing though, you don't know where the hell they are. So you better just go to either south of Slateport and go between the routes of Slateport and Dewford, like I did, or go to the right of Lily Cove and go all the way on those routes all the way down to Pacific Log and back. Either way, you're going to eventually encounter Latios, which I did around the Lily Cove area, and I caught it using my Master Ball, because honestly, I despise roaming Pokemon, and luckily this is the only one we have to worry about in this game. With its capture, the moment has arrived to go rein in the final mon of our quest, Rayquaza. We left for the Sky Pillar, stumbled across some bike puzzles that took an embarrassing long time to complete, and came face to face with the third and most important member of the super ancient Pokemon, Rayquaza. This fight took me a couple of attempts similar to Groudon and the Regis, but eventually I caught it with some friends watching using a timer ball, which feels sort of ironic given how long this challenge took.
Well, fucking get those balls out.
I just
Yeah,
want to use
balls.
timer.
Why just leaving them hanging, dude?
Fucking get them shits out.
Fuck you guys, I caught it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, is that a premiere ball?
Damn!
What was
No, that was a timer ball. The Generation 3 games are my favorite of the bunch, partially due to the fact that Ruby was the first Pokemon game I could call my own. Before it, my family just shared the Gen 1 and 2 games, though I was always partial to Blue, Yellow, and Silver, while my sister preferred Red and Gold. When Ruby finally came into my lap, it was during a tough time in my life. I believe it was the same year my father passed away, and my mother got it for me for Christmas. I'll never forget the huge smile and hug I gave my mom when I saw it. It truly was a bright spot in a dark time, and I wonder if she remembers that same moment as fondly as I do. I can certainly say I wouldn't be doing any Professor Oak's challenge video today if it weren't for my mom and her support of me playing games, especially Pokemon. So if you ever see this, Mom, thanks, and I love you. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and more importantly, I hope to see you all share your thoughts on the challenge, whether you have attempted this or not. Obviously, I want to give a big shout out to Johnstone, whose content has really inspired me to try different things, and if for whatever reason you're watching this, sorry for stealing your intro like that. I also want to give a big shout out to my friends and my wife Lexi for helping support me in this journey of challenging myself creatively and critiquing me along the way. And for one final time this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys some other time. Peace!